solve x squared plus 1 equal to 0. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides, and x squared is equal to -1, and x is equal to plus or minus square root of -1. Square root of -1 is not a real number. So let us define I as square root of -1. Therefore, I squared will be the square root of -1 squared, which is -1. So I is equal to the square root of -1, and I squared is equal to -1. Now, the previous equation we'll have for solution plus or minus I. The number I equal to square root of -1 is called the imaginary unit. So complex number is a number of the form z is equal to a plus bi, where I is equal to square root of -1 and I squared is equal to -1. A is the real part and b is the imaginary part, which is multiplied by the imaginary unit I. So for any negative square root of -b, it's really square root of b times square root of -1, which is I. So it's I square root of b. Therefore, square root of -1 is equal to I by definition. Square root of -25 will be square root of 25 times square root of -1. Square root of 25 is 5, and square root of -1i, 5i. Square root of -12 will be square root of 4 times square root of 3 times square root of -1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 3 is irrational. It stays square root of 3. And square root of -1 is I. The preferred notation is 2i square root of 3. Identify the real and imaginary parts of each complex number. 2 plus 5i. The real part is 2, and the imaginary part is the coefficient of I, which is 5. 7 minus half of I. The real part is 7, and the imaginary part is -1/2. Coefficient of the imaginary unit. 3i can be written as 0 plus 3i. The real part is 0. The imaginary part is 3. -9 can be written as -9 plus 0i. The real part is -9. The imaginary part is 0, so integers are complex numbers. 0 is 0 plus 0i. The real part is 0. The imaginary part is 0. 3 minus square root of -25. Square root of -25 is square root of 25 times square root of -1. Square root of 25 is 5, and square root of -1 is defined as I. So it can be written as 5i. Therefore, we have 3 plus 5i. The real part is 3, and the imaginary part is 5. Negative 1 plus 2i. The real part is negative 1, and the imaginary part is 2. Negative 1/3 minus 6i. Real part is negative 1/3. Imaginary part is negative 6. 8 plus 0i. The real part is 8, and the imaginary part is 0.